Today, I'm pleased that you are here for the second annual Stan Sigman Leadership and Innovation Series. The Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business greatly value this opportunity to bring the world of business closer to our community and to our students. I know you will enjoy today's presentations, and I trust that the stories you will hear, the questions you ask, and the lesson you learn will remain with you and enrich your own experience as you move forward. And now I'm going to ask Dr. Babb to come in and introduce our guest. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Glad you're here. My name is Jeffrey Babb, and I'm very proud to be the Stan Sigman Professor of Business here in the Paul and Virginia College of Business. I'd like to welcome you to the second annual Stan Sigman Leadership Innovation Series. The series is the result of a partnership between the Friends of Stan Sigman, the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business, and West Texas A&M University. This series was conceived to honor Stan Sigman, and I'm certain you'll learn more about who Stan Sigman was during our discussion this morning. He was a leader, he was a visionary, and most of all, this is quite important, he was a local boy done good. Mr. Sigman was born in Lubbock, Texas, and he obtained his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration right here at WT. Mr. Sigman is known for a celebrated career in the telecommunications industry where, through years of hard work, Mr. Sigman advanced to President and Chief Executive Officer of Southwestern Bell Mobile Systems and Chief Executive Officer of Singular Wireless, President and Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Sigman's lead in the acquisition of AT&T Wireless and his partnership with Steve Jobs and Apple brought the iPhone to the world. That's probably how you would most be able to relate to his story. Today we welcome Jeff McElfresh as the 2022 speaker in the Stan Sigman Leadership and Innovation Series. Mr. McElfresh is the Chief Operating Officer at AT&T, and he's widely known as well as a global telecommunications leader. Jeff has 27 years of experience with AT&T in a variety of strategic, operational, and technology leadership roles. We're honored to host Mr. McElfresh in today's event. This morning, Mr. McElfresh will engage in a moderated discussion with Dr. Ann Macy, who is the Edwards Professor of Finance. This will be followed by questions from the audience. When Q&A starts, we'll actually have you come up here, though it's probably a little nervous, but we want to capture you in your prettiness for the video. With that, please join me in welcoming Mr. McElfresh and Dr. Ann Macy.
First off, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate this. And it's not common that we always have a chief operating officer of a major company, so we appreciate that you're here. So one of the things I went back through, and I just went through the October 20th earnings call and that report. So congratulations on a fantastic quarter. So that's excellent. But one of the key themes that we see through that is that AT&T is really known for innovation. Stan was known for innovation, and you're known for innovation. So I thought maybe that's how we could start today's discussion, where you could talk a little bit about innovation and how do you decide when enough innovation is enough?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. Good morning, everyone. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm here kind of selfishly trying to figure out what it is about this university and the water in this town that creates some amazing leaders. And to be honest with you, kind of starting off this discussion, I would not be here today sitting in this room or in this capacity as the number 2 at AT&T if it were not for Stan Sigman and what I learned from him. And I hope that over the course of the discussion today and maybe in some of your questions, I can give you a sense of some of the things I learned and what I try to model and emulate from Stan and his leadership style, because that individual has touched so many individuals inside of our company and in the community. His fingerprints are everywhere, and I'm going to do my best to prove it to you with some pictures, with some words. But I can assure you that asking and seeking some insights into how AT&T has evolved over the years and has been an innovator probably is a good way to start the discussion. We were talking earlier, and on the way here this morning, noticed that Amarillo is a bit more chilly than it is in Dallas. And I was just reminded of a couple of TV episodes. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Yellowstone. I, for one, love that program. Anybody seen 1883, the prequel to it? Well, to put it into perspective, this city, this town, and this university kind of founded all generally in that same time frame, as was AT&T. In fact, the first patent for telephony was in 1876. And I watched as McGraw was crossing the Brazos River thinking, imagine to see an AT&T technician there in the woods hanging up a wire, thinking how much technology has changed the way we live, the way we work. And in fact, I, for one, would have never envisioned that this industry would grow into being something so profoundly game-changing for you, for me, for my children, for my 79-year-old father and mother, who were both retirees of this telephone company. That's right. My dad started as an installer, frontline, climbing those telephone poles, much as Stan Sigman did. And technology has changed a lot. Most of you probably in the audience think about these nice devices that I, of course, love and carry around as this has always been with us. But that's not the case. That's not true. And in the story of the industry, in the 27 years that I've spent participating in it, I've been part of a technology evolution that started out as a science project known as wireless. And I started in the business building cell towers like the one you have on campus, which I'm pretty certain Stan had something to do with back in the day. And trying to explain to those that you interact with in a big company that makes their money on wires and telephones that are connected to a wall, and anything wireless back in those days was probably more called cordless, not wireless. And in some cases, and I reckon in many parts of your community here back in those days, we still had rotary dial telephones, and to call across town was long distance. Trying to explain to your colleagues at the office that you're working on a technology that is going to be wireless was something that I think a lot of good leaders and a lot of innovation was forged from. And in Stan's legacy, he was at the forefront of wireless. Back long ago, before we had coverage that you could use inside of every classroom or inside of your house, when basically you just use the technology to make a phone call, and if you could complete one, that was a miracle. And you fast forward, I think most of the students probably have heard something called 5G. It's like the G's. I started in the industry when we were 1.5 Gs. And we are on the 5th generation, and there's more to come. And so how do you get there? What is it that transpired over that period of time that enabled a company like AT&T to be an innovator in that industry? Well, it starts with the right culture. Mm-hmm. And I know for the business majors, you've probably heard the old adage that culture or execution eats strategy for breakfast. And if I were going to impart on you one thing that I think is incredibly important, if there's nothing else you hear today, hear this, please hear this. This is what I have learned watching how Stan Sigman led in all of his capacity in his business. It is the missing X factor that's not going to be in your business plan. It's not going to be in a business model. There's no Excel formula for running your financial analysis about making money or returns. It's about execution and having the right culture in the company so that your team can execute and be successful. And that's what I hope we can spend a minute or two unpacking as we get through the conversation. So
think about, for the students here, think about what he's saying right there, is that when he started, then you're dealing with a group that's used to wires, that's used to just a phone. And basically what they're saying is that there's a group of engineers, a group of business leaders in AT&T, and Stan and Jeff are part of that, where they're going to go ahead and do it as wireless. And for us now, that's absolutely makes perfect sense, right? Mm-hmm. But if you think about something where you have to disrupt the entire environment, and so basically what we're going to do is we're going to just unhook you from the wire. And now we're just completely used to that. But I mean, if you think about what that has to happen in a huge organization to get to the ability to do that. And I think that is something where, it's where innovation and leadership comes together, right? Because you have to have strong leadership, you have to have the good culture in order to create the environment where that innovation works.
You do, and you're right. I mean, if you think about the classic, and I'm sure this is part of the curriculum, is the classic S-curve. Mm-hmm. There's the emerging, kind of nascent, a new idea, and then you start to scale it. When you grow in customers and subscribers and revenues and your costs go up, but you're growing, then you get to a spot where the product's kind of old, it's no longer popular, you get to that top of that S-curve. That is probably a good visual to have when it comes to technology and innovation. Back in those days, we were pushing the envelope on what was known as the internet. And the internet back then was pretty small. In fact, the internet is only, simply put, the internet is just connecting more places together. In fact, that's AT&T's vision and purpose. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to connect people to greater possibility. And every time that we connect with a cell tower or a fiber optic cable, an institution like yours, or a home like yours, or an apartment, or a Starbucks, or a shopping center, you're actually creating a gateway or access to the internet, because you use that to gain access to the things that each of you love to do and how you work, teach, how you enjoy one another and your family. And so back then, it was all done over copper. And for all of us older folks, and I'm a little old, I feel like I'm young, but it was with dial-up. Mm-hmm. And you would hear the modem squeak, and then you would watch the web page load. And if it didn't load fast, you were pretty upset. Something's wrong, I got to figure out what we do. All of the investment dollars and all the money was leaning into that. Mm-hmm. Because that was at the scale point of the S-curve, while wireless was down here at the very beginning and emerging. And so how do you ensure that you're innovating the right things? At the end of the day, you got to know what makes a business click. Mm-hmm. And this is really important. Stan taught me and many others at AT&T that the most important person in a business is guess who? Who's the most important person in the business? It's the customer.
Yes.
They are the boss. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that pay you for what you do. Now, if you're a good business leader and you've got a great team, you not only take care of the customer, you take care of those that have invested with you. And so I like to think of triangles. Triangles for me are nice visuals of customer, employee, and share owner. And when you get all three of those humming right, you've got a business that's successful. And the biggest fingerprint on me personally from Stan Sigman was watching this man lead by example. He was humble, he's pretty direct. And for those that kind of grew up in a farm life, you understand what that feels like. There's hard work, there's grit and determination, but at the same time, he recognized for us to win, for us to be successful, for us to do a better job of serving customers, you have got to enable those professionals of yours, the women and the men that serve your customer, with the right tools and the right support to earn the business. As long as you get that right, it's pretty simple. It's not complicated. And having the fortitude to remain consistent in that approach, and I'm telling you, is a contemporary strategy for business.
Yeah. So notice what he's got so many great themes in that, because if we're looking at that, then what the emphasis is, of course, on the customers. And of course, for those of us, I've got some finance students in here and accounting students, so let's think income statement, and the top of that income statement with revenue. But then the idea is that you are always trying to produce something for the customer, because that's the top of the income statement, and that's what allows you then to do the rest of your business. But notice the other part of that is that the leadership has to be very focused. Right, so what you're saying here is that Stan and that crew at AT&T is staying very focused in innovation for the customer. And so notice there that, again, they're looking to disrupt the industry in order to gain. So they're looking to disrupt it. How can I disrupt it? Where's the profit center to disrupt it? And what are you saying that the profit center is? Connect people. So how do we connect people better and faster? And that's what we're going to innovate. And if we put everybody together, that's where we move forward. And so it's now we can look back at it, right? It's a great case of everything working together. But when you're in the midst of it, that can't have just been super obvious, this is what we need to do.
Well, yeah, it's number one, not all customers are created equal.
Yes.
Right?
Some
And
you
so-
want and some you don't.
And that's true. But the best innovation generally comes from the front line.
Yeah.
Because people who are in it that actually are doing the work, they're the ones that represent your company and your brand. And if their attitude is right and they're proud of the brand that they work for, customers understand sometimes things break. I mean, sometimes storms happen. Sometimes Mother Nature stands in the way of us as a company being able to provide the kind of service that we have engineered for and designed for. Customers understand that. They just want you to fix it and get it repaired quick and make sure you treat them with some empathy and some respect. And these are all characteristics and trademarks of how Stan Sigman led very complex organizations. I mean, and if I could go back in time a little bit, back in the day when I first had the opportunity to work in Stan's organization, our company, wireless company, was known as Singular Wireless. It's a brand that's part of the mix master of all the brands that AT&T has been known for over the years. And
what I like about that is that you use the word wireless, which implies there's wires, right? So I mean, they're trying to make a distinction on that.
yeah, that's right. But we didn't have national coverage.
Yeah.
We were somewhat of a spotty network. I mean, here in your hometown, we were strong. In Dallas, we were strong. In the Southeast, we had good coverage. But nationwide, we did not. In fact, Verizon was a much stronger, better performing company than we were. And one of the most important metrics to measure the value of a business is churn. You guys know what I mean by churn? Customer churn. It's when a customer cancels service. Like, if you're satisfying customers if they continue giving you their money. And a signal for customer satisfaction is when your churn level's high, you're doing something wrong. Your price value equation isn't right, your service level isn't right, your commitment to providing that service has failed, or there's a better deal, a better offer in some other company. And so customers vote with their wallets, and they're pretty quick at that. And so back then, I think our churn rate was 2.5%. I think our arch rival competitor Verizon's churn rate was a 1.75. And the difference in value for your finance teams here is huge. I mean, that creates an enterprise value multiplier if churn is industry leading. And Stan had a way of walking into a situation as a leader, seeing a brighter future, something that the team couldn't see was possible tomorrow, and painting the right attitude and a more positive horizon, something to go be great at. Churn was not it for us. And Stan said, as his core pillar of vision, you must be an industry leader, therefore churn it is. We didn't have the best network, we didn't have nationwide coverage, and so we had to expand the footprint of the network, and that's what entered our merger with what was then known, and this gets confusing, AT&T Wireless, which was not Singular Wireless. And bringing those two companies together gave us a complete nationwide network and gave us a fighting chance to compete and win. The third quarter results of AT&T just a few weeks ago, we posted for the third straight quarter so far industry leading postpaid voice churn in the industry at a 0.84.
Think about that, less than 1. And so again, we always talk about in business how the value's made at the margin. So by just moving that from above 2 to actually below 2 and then now below 1, look at the growth on that. But then the other interesting thing is that he mentioned there that they joined together. There was the merger between the two. So again, it's scale. So for many times, in order to create value, you have to be at a spot where you have the scale to provide that full customer service.
It is. In fact, I'd say that if we all were part of a company, just us, and the only thing we did was build a fiber network or wireless network just in Amarillo, that's the only scale we had, I'm pretty sure we'd be pretty good at it. I think that you'd have a personal connection to your customer base because they might be related. Certainly members or friends, you know what this place is. And therefore, when you represent your business that way, you're quite effective and you generally can beat the competition. Now, when you scale, when you get huge and large, it's really hard to execute consistently like that, like we would be doing here in Amarillo. And
so they're losing the personal touch, right? So you have
correct.
a trade-off is that one, you can talk at the personal level, at the frontline level, so you can see what needs, you can see what your customer needs and you can create that. But once you scale it, now you've lost some of that.
And I would tell you, I learned a very valuable lesson in this time frame that I'd like to share with the young, bright minds here for maybe a spark of thinking. Okay, because this was humbling for me. At the time, I'm an electrical engineer. I went to the University of Florida. I grew up in North Florida. My parents didn't have the opportunity to go to college. So I'm first generation. And of course, I joined the telephone company, and my parents were still working in the phone company. They were working for the wired side. The old stuff. I'm on this new tech science project known as wireless. And so I never thought I'd ever go get a graduate degree. As an electrical engineer building cellular back in the day when we were just starting, I never thought I needed to go get any kind of education or training on business because I'm going to learn it on the job. And I had the opportunity to do that in many countries in South America. In fact, I met my wife and got married in Venezuela. And but when I realized that I needed to round myself out a bit because as an engineer, I know many things, but I could probably better myself because the future leader needs to think about what success and what's needed for success in the future. The old, Wayne Gretzky, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. And I felt like I needed to learn more. And so I had the opportunity to go to Kellogg to get my MBA. Right. So now I'm an expert, okay? I'm a marketing savant. I'm an engineer who knows how to build business models, analyze deals, crunch the data, and prove my theory is right. Okay? Now I'm a young whippersnapper who doesn't know much. Stan was a direct, humble, treated people fairly, but you knew where you stood. He was a very clear communicator. And we're going to put these two companies together. And I sat down with Ralph Della Vega, who I worked for directly, and you heard from him last year, and the planning team, and I said, this is not going to go good. I've analyzed the customer base of Singular Wireless and AT&T Wireless. Let me tell you how many customers are at AT&T Wireless today that fired us, Singular, because we didn't do a good job. Remember I told you our churn rate was high. So they left us, they joined the AT&T Wireless brand. Now we're merging with AT&T Wireless. Those customers are going to be like, I don't want to be part of you. I fired you. So I did all the cohort math. I did all the analytics at a market level. And I sat with Stan and Ralph and explained, when we launch this company, we're going to lose customers. Churn's not going to improve. And Stan said, as he often did when he didn't like what he heard, wrong answer. Then he'd just stare at you. And what I learned in that over the next, call it 6 to 7 months, as the teams worked and innovated how we would launch the new company, we not only launched that company in record time, completely converting all of our retail stores, all 2,000 of them, to the new brand in 7 days.
Think of that. 1 week.
From the day that we did it, we closed the transaction. We did it with volunteerism from the employees who worked over the weekend to do that. We launched the new company and we led the industry the first quarter out in growth. So what did the young Jeff get wrong? What was not in Jeff's model was culture, leadership, respect for the women and the men on the front line who actually get the work done. And Stan established a model of how to operate a large-scale business, and I am not proud. I am being very open and transparent here. I have copied that model in 6 different countries, 3 different languages, 3 different currencies, and you want to know something? Man, does it work. And it's all about enabling the decision-making as close to the customer as possible. Give them the authority to make the decision. Now, to whom much is given, much is expected. And another famous line that anybody and everyone that worked with Stan will repeat is, inspect what you expect. And so the way we went about executing that merger very much had Stan's fingerprints. We had 27 markets. They were led by VP GMs, Vice President General Managers. They were the CEO of that territory. And Stan made it clear as day inside the company. You run the company. The rest of us up at headquarters, we're here to support you. Now, if you're going to be given that authority, boy, you know, it's personal. Because when you fail to deliver on the commitment you said you would deliver, you felt like you let Stan down. And the followership that he could create with this model is contagious. It's a competitive weapon. It is a strategic advantage. And I have been hard at work over the last 3 years in my capacity as the COO of AT&T, trying to bring that leadership model full force inside of this company. And I think we're starting to see that the results are paying off. It works.
So notice what he's got there, the completely decentralized model, right? So much of what we see for many of the firms is actually a centralized model, you know, trying to get the power into just a few decision makers. And what Stan did is he's going ahead and letting the decision makers be within each of those markets because they knew those markets the best. And what's interesting though is that there's a tremendous sense of loyalty but also responsibility. Inspect what you expect, but there a lot of expected of the VPs, but then of the people above a lot expected. But think about that from Stan's background from an agricultural amount, right? And from where he started out is that, you know, you are entrusting the cowboys a lot, right? You entrust the farm hands a lot because they're right there next to the customer. You know, but by the same token, they better do their job. So if their job is to do X, they better do X. You had said something interesting when we had visited about how if anybody called to ask a question, everybody had to respond. You better always be a good team player, even if you were competitive.
Yeah, I think one of the practices that Stan did, and you knew this was honest, and it was deeply ingrained, he understood that maybe as the old adage goes, you know, maybe some days you might be the winner, some days you might be the hero, and you can choose as a person to be the standout, the star. And that's okay, right? We'll celebrate that. But nobody on a team has permission to lose alone. And if you think about that, it's the old kind of concept of when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, well, you raise your hand and you ask for help. And to be humble enough to ask for that help, because nobody by themselves has all the answers. Like our industry would not be where it is today. It's not because of just Stan. In fact, he couldn't have done this as a single human being. It was because of the way he enabled the right culture of transparency, honesty, humility, but also competitiveness. We have a job to do, we got to get the job done. And so you knew that if you needed help and you raised your hand, you were going to get it. And when you got the help, you better deliver, because it's a two-way exchange. And I can remember vividly, the company moved me out to Arizona, New Mexico. I'd never lived that far out west. Okay, so I'm kind of East Coaster, and go out there in the dead heat of summer. It's 115 degrees outside, and my wife, as I mentioned, is from Venezuela. She's like, I don't think I like this desert living. It's kind of hot around here. It wasn't 3 weeks I was on that job when I got a phone call from Stan. I'm small time. Stan was the number one, the boss, right? He called. How's it going? You got her fixed yet? You know, kind of the classic questions that Stan would ask. And then immediately, and I mean immediately, pivot to, tell me about your team. Who's good on your team? Who you working with? Who do you got to change out? Literally, that dominated the conversation more than business results, because Stan understood that it's a team game. And if you're going to build a winning team that can innovate in the face of adversity against all odds, you got to have the right people and the right team and the right culture. But you never hear Stan write a manuscript on culture. You never see him, you know, up on stage talking about this, because some of us think, or may think, that's kind of soft stuff, and it really isn't. That deeply ingrained belief set in teamwork, holding one another accountable, is the way you can execute a very strong vision and a strategy for the company.
So notice again, a lot of accountability, right? So you have the freedom to do that. But you also have the expectation, but then it's coming back. And you made an interesting point there about the team, about who you're going to promote and then who you're going to change out. So obviously that tells you that in some sense you're in a constant assessment situation.
Correct. Because you as a leader or you as a contributor are not alone. Mm-hmm. There are, as in the case today, 175,000 employees inside of our company who are depending on smart decisions being made. who are depending on every other member of the company that's not them doing their part to accomplish what objectives that we've set off to accomplish as a company. And when you realize that as a leader, it actually coming full circle to where I am in my career today after I've made so many mistakes in my journey to where I am, those points of mistake are where you really learn how it works. You know, innovators or innovation is not something you set off to do and then it happens and then it's okay, let's go innovate something different. It doesn't work like that. You know, there are probably 95% of the time it fails. Maybe 5% of the time it's successful and it's a breakout. I mean, I can tell you in the early days of the iPhone, nobody thought or knew that that thing was going to be huge. It wasn't like, I mean, all of y'all know it's huge, but back then nobody saw that as being something that was going to change an industry.
And create. I mean, think about how many industries now exist because of the iPhone and all of the apps and everything. It's created full industries.
But it does say something, and it's another really important point that I hope you take away from this. And that is success, innovation, moving forward, expanding your career, finding success in your purpose, all of these things, they don't happen on a calendar you write or create. It doesn't happen on a schedule. It happens when it happens. And what's really important as a young, bright mind sitting right here in this institution is to think about what you need to do to be prepared. Because when lightning strikes, it strikes. And you got to be in a position to take advantage of that. A person, personally, a company, professionally, an opportunity in industry. Like it being like success is the result of being well prepared. And to be well prepared, you can't be insular. You can't just focus on you. You have to focus on your network of support, educators, family, friends, colleagues that'll keep you accountable. And that's why the competitive spirit that Stan developed, where I would compete against the VPGM in Southern California or in the one in New York, even from my little market in Arizona, New Mexico, because it helped keep me accountable for doing my part. And it helped me prepare and my team prepare for when that opportunity did arise, I could take advantage of it. And so kind of clicking this thing all the way back to the beginning, you're sitting where you are right now in your life. You have got technology that Stan did not have, that I did not have when I was learning at your age. You've got a industry, the ability to work remotely for anybody, anywhere, because of this wireless network, because of the fiber optics that we build. And your gateway, your opportunity is the entire world from sitting right here where you are because of that technology.
Right.
There's no lack of opportunity for you. And I hope that you take that away, because I got to be honest, I've got a video I do want to show.
Okay.
Probably something, you know, Stan didn't like to be the limelight or the center of attention. And I'm not going to show this because of that. I want to show this video because it speaks to me and many of us, and I hope it speaks to you about where Stan started and where he ended, and some of the big highlights. To imagine somebody from your school right here one day led in the most sophisticated industry that he, I'm sure, didn't realize would exist when he started out.
So once again, as we sort of wrap up a little bit, notice again the emphasis on just staying focused. But what's interesting is that here you've spent, talking about running a team and managing, and you haven't mentioned, like revenue. You're not going into the numbers because the numbers will take care of itself if you manage the team. You've got to manage the team, you've got to create that competitive but also collaborative environment. And that's very difficult to do. I can tell you that to be both competitive and collaborative at the same time. But the idea is that you're challenging yourself to move forward, constantly innovating, staying there very focused on the customer, very focused on that front line. So it is, it's when you talk about it, it seems, okay, this is doable, right? But it's really very, very difficult to implement. So appreciate that. All right, so we have the video of,
Yeah, can we
yes.
cue it up? Green button? Is that right? All right, let's see if this technology is going to work today.
Yeah.
In 1970, AT&T, before divestiture, decided to make a movie about a telephone man, and the story was around 5 telephone repairmen, and I was one of them. And
Stan Sigman works to see to it that the phone lines in his territory are continually working to carry his customers' calls.
when I look at that commercial and I see those wires, I had no idea that someday I'd be working in an industry where there'd be telecommunications without wires.
Kind of think about that. I mean, number one, how cool is it to
Looks
do
great,
a
doesn't he?
lineman job
He looks
on
awesome.
horseback? And number two, yeah, I think he could have passed as the Marlboro Man.
Exactly.
To think about how he started, where he came from, and the work ethic, and the school of hard knocks, and the determination that he carried forward to influence an industry. I mean, Stan Sigman's in the Hall of Fame for our wireless industry. You wouldn't be enjoying the technology you enjoy today had we not achieved scale in our wireless infrastructure in this country. And while I know there are a lot of things in our country that aren't right, and there's a lot of polarization that might occur depending on where you sit on certain policies or where you are in your cycle of life, I can assure you this: you step foot outside of this country and you travel the world or have the opportunity to go experience what other countries have when it comes to a telecommunications network and a wireless service network, and this country leads the world in that. And your former Buffalo alumni, led the industry to go build that work. And it wasn't technology, it wasn't capital, it wasn't the quality of our network, it wasn't any of the things that you might assume that led Singular Wireless and Apple to join forces to bring the first iPhone to life. It was culture, it was attitude, it was the human nature of how Stan and this team operated. And as I'm sure most of you probably can imagine, that Apple today is not the company it was in the past. They were smaller, they were stepping into this new telecommunications area in the phone, and they were looking for partners they could trust, work with, who were flexible, moldable, to do something that had never been done before. And so that innovation wasn't like packaged up. That innovation occurred because the Singular Wireless team, led by Stan, had the right attitude and had the right culture to earn Apple's trust to go co-develop stuff together. And I'm pretty sure that horseback lineman never once envisioned one day he'd be standing on stage with Steve Jobs.
Before Steve Jobs was Steve Jobs. It's one of those where you have to keep in mind that these were two companies that were much more the young buck on that horse. And they're taking a gamble. Let's see what we can do by let's disrupt it. Why do we need wires? Why don't we just try having it? And then think about everything that they were created. But true visionaries and true men.
And at the beginning of the one last comment on this, because like I said, I'm certain Stan is not an individual who wants to be the center of attention or the center of the limelight. He's a good human and believed in winning as a team is contagious, and it's how you create durable performance. And so anything that focuses on Stan himself, right, he generally shied away from out of humility and respect for the men and the women on the front line. But I would tell you that the core innovation of Apple and the iPhone and the work that we did with them was based on customer feedback about how cell phones were used back then. It goes back to the customer. What are the pain points? What are we going to disrupt? We're not trying to disrupt a competitor. We're trying to do something that makes life better, that makes the service experience better. And that was the genesis of what led to that very first iPhone, and that was in the days of 2G. Now we are in 5G, and we've got a lot to be thankful for Stan and his leadership and contribution to all of us.
So we have time for a few questions. Do we have a couple of student questions? And I believe you're going to come up here. So this gentleman was Johnny on spot. Who was this other person that raised their hand? Why don't you go ahead and come up so we can kind of get that going? If anybody from over here.
Okay, I do apologize. This is going to be a little bit of a big question, especially with you wanting to be innovative, because there is something that's been we're on the cusp of for the past 10 years, since 1990. It's always 10 years out. Quantum computers and the ability to transmit some form of communication across the entire world or the entire universe within an instant. Have y'all actually begun to incorporate or actually looked into that, incorporating that technology, at least also with possibly AI technology?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For those, I'll articulate it. Tell me if I get it right.
Yes, sir.
So quantum computing is like the next big thing in computing. Are you guys involved in that? How are you thinking about it? What are you doing with it? And how much AI are you employing in your business today? Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, so computers are binary. It's either 0 or 1, and a whole bunch of 0 or 1s, and that's what the computer chips do, and bang, there you have it. You've got processing power and a little beautiful thing. That binary state isn't as powerful as if you had an infinite number of states between 0 and 1. 0.00001, 0.00002, all the way to full 1. That's quantum computing in a layman's term, because that's about as much as I know about it. And it is a cutting edge technology that many sectors of industry are working on. We at AT&T have contributed to much of the science around quantum computing with our labs organization. The area that we are focused on at AT&T is, once again, our purpose is connecting people to greater possibilities. So our quantum research and development is on quantum networking. So how do you take the quantum computer that might sit at UC Cal Berkeley in a lab somewhere, and how can you build a transmission system? Remember, today it's fiber optics. We're getting probably 400 gigabits of throughput on it. We need more capacity than that to share and transmit the quantum computer outputs, if you will. So that's where we at AT&T are putting our contributions in that science, working with partners like IBM, like Google, and many others.
Again, focusing on the customer, and focusing on just doing it faster, the
Correct.
connection. It's great.
The second element of that is AI, artificial intelligence, and I think you might like this one. Yeah, we are. We use artificial intelligence and machine learning models. And what we're most proud of, or what I am most proud of, is our first real big foray into that is to provide our front line humans with assistance, like a virtual assistant, something that is powered by artificial intelligence and the machine learning, such that when I join the company and I'm talking to you as a customer, or you're the customer, I'm talking to you online, a question pops. I don't know how to answer it because I'm really only 2 months in. I haven't had that question before. Our AI tools aid our frontline rep in answering that question. And the feedback that the rep enters into the tool drives the input data for the machine learning model to get better and better. We then have the opportunity to push that completely to digital, where the customer can self-service, interacting with a bot or in the IVR or a chat online to solve the problem. And so it's a human-assisted AI is our primary investment right now.
All right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank you.
So sorry, I actually have 2 questions, but they'll be short, I swear. So firstly, what is AT&T doing to better broadband and wireless in rural areas like the Panhandle and just the Great Plains and rural areas in general?
Yep.
And secondly, are there any internships opportunities for college students like us in the Canyon Amarillo area through AT&T?
I like this. This is good. All right.
Yeah, the answer to your second question is absolutely. I'm on the hunt for the next version of Stan. So you bring it and we'll take it. The first question is an important one. In fact, we at AT&T have made a very significant commitment to closing what has been described as the digital divide. And for those that are connected and enjoy even decent connectivity on your phone, probably don't have a true sense of what the digital divide feels like. And I've shared with other students and other community leaders, you know, what I'd like you to do is turn your cell phone off, put it in airplane mode for an entire week and see if you can stand it. Because technically that's really what it feels like if you're not connected or you're kind of caught in the digital divide. And so AT&T made a statement, a commitment as part of our purpose as we restructured the company that we are going to lean in and put everything we've got at closing that digital divide. And that results in things like us building out more infrastructure in areas that have not been as attractive financially because the customer base is sparse, it's not dense, and the cost of capital and a return, taking it back to the finance team, is a tough, difficult equation to balance. So how do you influence that? You have a vision for something that's brighter in the future, and you realize you can't do it alone. You have to work with the local communities, with government, and get policy established that provides for the right assistance to make these investments or to help citizens that can't afford to connect, enable them to be connected. And I'm proud of AT&T and other companies that have built some policies with the US government that have resulted in significant dollars, billions of dollars to support the build out of infrastructure all over the country, and AT&T's actively invested in that. Specifically here in your backyard, right now the phase of our investment is the deployment of a very special tranche or block of spectrum that we call midband. And we acquired that spectrum less than 2 years ago, and for the last 24 months, we've been doing the work on our cell towers to lift that spectrum into service. That spectrum offers the true speeds of 5G, and I won't announce anything publicly, but you should expect that we'll have, well, I trust you, of course. You want the internship, but you'll see AT&T participate a lot more in taking that wireless network that's got more capacity and enabling broadband connectivity out in more rural parts of our backyard here.
Thank you. An important lesson there of looking at how you are using partners thinking about the use of partners along
yeah.
those lines. That's very important.
Can't be done by one party. It takes a village, and it takes the community, it takes the citizens, it takes government, it takes companies.
So your main point is like the quality of leadership is the most important aspect of growing your business and making a successful one. So I guess my question is, because I didn't know Stan, and I would assume that positive affirmation would be a pretty big part of being a good leader. Because kind of the culture before my time kind of relied upon negative affirmation, I would assume. And we're kind of transitioning into the opposite of that. So what would be your thoughts on that?
That's actually that's an insightful question. I can recall at the end of the day, we want to win. I don't know anybody anywhere in any business that wants to be part of a losing team. Like, I haven't ever found that. And so I can recall early on in Stan's tenure at the helm of Singular Wireless, our culture was horrible. We would attack one another. We wouldn't support one another. And a senior executive asked Stan in a forum, small forum, "What are you going to do about culture?" And he said, "Culture, okay. We're going to win." And winning ain't easy. Winning takes a vision and a shared vision. And that shared vision needs to be followed by the accountability and telling you, I'm holding you accountable to do this. What do you need to do this? I believe you can do this. I'm putting you in charge to do this. I'm going to tell you very clearly what I expect. You tell me what you need to deliver. And when you fail to deliver, I will be there to ask you, why didn't you succeed? And if you can articulate for me the lesson that you learned, I, as the leader, am very pleased with that continuous learning. It's not saying something negative like forcing you to do something, not telling, but teaching you how to be successful. And something amazing happens when you're very clear about what you expect and you provide the right level of support and you're consistent with that. People respond. The company starts to win, and then the attitudes become positive around the company, and then you're the one now holding the company to a higher standard. The leader is sitting there thinking, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And think about basketball. Think about some underdog teams that rally to beat a rival or a team that's ranked and there's no chance on paper that they're going to win. Think about the Arizona Diamondbacks beating the Yankees way back when for the World Series. Sub team, didn't have the right A-list players in every position. Like, there is a level of accountability and ownership that you strive to create. And that works today, in today's modern world, because I've got a lot of the same challenges with much of our younger talent that's coming into the company that didn't grow up in the same genre of time as did Stan.
Right.
So shared vision, winning, you'd be surprised at the magic that creates.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time for one more.
We have one more. Okay. Some of us have 11 o'clock class.
Yeah, I've got all the answers to the exam, so you can see me afterwards.
He does not. I have a whole bunch of my students that he does not.
Okay, normally I'm not one to speak up, but my curiosity got the best of me here. If you could build a universal model for not just surviving, but thriving in your market, what elements would you put into that model?
Boy, I could take that 100 places. Are you in terms of model? You mean like business model or
As
leadership
in,
model?
as
or-
far as succeeding in your market, what elements come together to help you thrive in your market?
Yeah, you know, you kept the best for last. Here-
We get this. All right.
Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna pull this full circle. Hand that to him real quick for me, real quick, and we'll move here quickly. Just read the date on that.
July 12th, 2005.
All right. That's a statement, letter, directive, a clarifying letter that I've had that Stan wrote to me and the 26 other VP GMs responsible for our market. Your question is answered in this document from 2005. And you probably didn't notice the number of times this thing's been unstapled and restapled because of the young leaders that are out in our local markets have requested, what's success look like? How should we operate the business? What are you looking for, Jeff? And it's a lot of what we've shared here. It's a shared vision by the team that feels like they are supported by the headquarters or the support organization, held accountable to go deliver great customer service, a great employee experience, and a great financial performance. When you get that triangle balance like that, there's harmony. And no matter what happens, no matter if the economy sours, no matter if a competitor comes in and tries to undercut you, you've got a lot of defense when you've got that triangle balanced. And essentially, this 3-page letter articulates how to operate a nationwide company at a local level with these models or the structure you're asking about. So yeah, I can make this available if you're interested.
May I hold that up really quick, because what I want to show you is that it's brief too. So it's not like one of
Oh,
my
no.
sets of lecture
Yeah,
notes that goes on for pages upon pages.
That's a long document.
That is a very long document from Mr. Sigman, but it clears through of it. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming. I want to thank you, as always, the support of AT&T, to West Texas A&M University, and to the Paul and Virginia Engler College of Business. It's been wonderful having you here. He's going to be in a 1 o'clock class, and he's also going to be doing a podcast. So we get a lot more of you today. We want to appreciate everything that you've done, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.